we're gonna go ahead and get started. And first thing I'm gonna show you is how to make the pizza dough. So pizza dough has a process, it's about 7 steps, right? And so it's mixing, resting, kneading, proofing, stretching, dressing, baking. Okay, the boys are up, so you will hear them in the background. I am sorry, but hey, we're at home right now, so it is what it is. It's Sunday morning, and we're just enjoying some family time. But it's time to make some lunch and breakfast for my wife. So the 7 steps, we're going to do the first couple right now. Like the dough I'm going to give you right now is actually a very simple recipe. It only requires about 4 ingredients. So I will post the recipe later on, so don't worry if you don't get all the measurements right now. But I will post the measurements later on when I forward it over to YouTube Live as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to need, in this recipe, now I normally do everything by weight, but because it's easier for people many times to follow along with volume measurement, I'm going to give you the volume measurement too, okay? So we're going to do 1 cup and 1 tablespoon of flour. AP flour, all-purpose flour is fine. Cake flour is fine too. I'm using 00 flour because it has more gluten in it, so it's going to be better for stretching without tearing it. All right. If you are measuring it out by weight, it's going to be 132 grams. Yeah, because it's crazy. It's crazy. So we're going to do that. We're also going to have 1 teaspoon of dry active yeast, or if you're weighing it out, 4 grams. And then sea salt, we're going to do 1 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, or 6 grams of that. Okay. So I'm using just a regular stand mixer right now, and just want to put all your dry ingredients in first.
Let's stay right here with me.
Go ahead and raise up the bowl, and you want to put it on the lowest setting, which is stir. Okay, on mine is stir. I have a KitchenAid. On yours it might be something else, but on mine it's going to be stir. All right. So I'm going to set my timer right now to 16 minutes. The reason why I'm doing that is because we're going to do 1 minute of kneading inside of the mixer. Now, if you're doing this by hand, it's not impossible. It just takes a little bit longer. This is going to take about 16 minutes for us to do it here, whereas by hand it's probably going to take you about 30, 35 minutes, depending on how strong you think you are. Okay. So. Pizza was a 16th century phrase, right? Coined in Naples, used to be flatbread with olive oil and cheese, right? It wasn't until like 1911, 19th century, when Queen Margherita got the first, what's called the first pie with tomatoes on it. So that was very significant. And that was basil, mozzarella, and tomatoes, and it was the colors to represent the Italian flag for her. Okay, so 1911 we got the Neapolitan, which is the first savory, and now I am just being creative and making breakfast pizza, which I thought everybody had until my wife told me that she hadn't had it. So anyway, so this is going to be going for a minute. Once we have our dry ingredients mixed together, we're going to go ahead and add in our wet ingredients. All right. So the wet ingredients are going to be a 1/3 cup of water and a 1/4 teaspoon of olive oil. Again, in measurements, 79 grams of water and 3 grams of extra virgin olive oil. Okay? And if you have a larger mixing bowl like I do, then you may have to use a rubber spatula to kind of scrape it down a little bit. But again, this is a very easy pizza dough to make, and you can use it with ingredients that you probably already have around your house. So that's the beauty of it as well. All right. So every now and then, just scrape the ingredients in, the dry ingredients, until it really starts to come together. All right. And what it'll do over time is it'll go from being just what seems like a lot of dry ingredients to being a light pizza dough, and then it, like pie dough, like really flaky, and then it's going to go from that into being what we recognize as a dough ball. Okay, so we're going to let this go. While this is going, we're going to go ahead and get the rest of our ingredients ready for the breakfast pizza. So it is a breakfast pizza, and what is breakfast without bacon? So we're going to go ahead and put some bacon on. Okay, now I'm just putting the bacon on the griddle here. If you have a pan, you can use a pan. Doesn't really matter. There's no special technique to it. Make the bacon how you like to make it. Now, the key when you're making these breakfast pizzas, in order to keep like your eggs from getting dry and things like that, is you want to make sure that you slightly undercook everything. The reason why is because you're going to pop it right into the oven afterwards, and the oven is going to finish it off. Okay? So, let's get our bacon on. We don't need to oil it because the bacon has enough fat on its own. We only need about 2 slices for this one. Okay? And then we're also going to get started with caramelizing our onions. Okay? Caramelized onions are amazing for this, and if you do them right, they can be amazing for yours too. Now there's a difference between caramelized and burnt. I'm going to say that off top, all right? So a lot of people get very nervous and they tend to stir their onions a lot, and what happens is you keep it from caramelizing that well because nothing is really touching the heat for that long. Okay? So the best way to do a great caramelized onion is to let the onions sit. Okay? They're not going to die. Let them sit. Let them caramelize. Come back to it every now and then, but do not saute those onions like you're about to go, I don't know, throw a party or something, all right? Just caramelized onions. So we're gonna preheat our pan first, and the reason why you always wanna preheat your pan is if you heat up your oil with the pan, many times the pan will be hot, but the pan will be hot after the oil has already reached its breakdown point called the smoke point, okay? And so what happens when you hit the smoke point, the oil breaks down, you get a lot of bitter flavor in your food, and on top of getting that bitter flavor, the oil is now burned up. It releases like carcinogens, things like that, that you don't really want in your food, right? So we don't need that, so we aren't gonna do that. So let me move this out the way so I don't melt the cheese. All right, I'm just gonna add a little bit of oil. Okay, then we're gonna take our onions, we're going to start caramelizing, okay? Now, what you're always looking for if your oil is ready to cook with, and this is the beauty of preheating your pan first, is you want to look for little ripples in the pan. So I always say ripples, some people say shimmering, but I say ripples because I think it's more relatable. So perfect time, we're in the winter time, so this is the perfect time to think about unless you're like Chef Andreas over in San Diego, if you can just go to the beach right now. But think of being on a sandy shore, you're right at the water's edge, the water rushes up, hits your ankles, and slowly recedes. And as it goes away, those little ripples that are left in the water, that's what we're looking for in our oil to know that it's ready, okay? So if you preheat the pan, and then you put the oil in after that, then the oil will immediately start to ripple, it's ready to cook, and now we haven't gotten to the point where it's breaking down before we get a chance to start cooking our food. Okay, so I'm going to do this maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the time that this is cooking, and that's just so I can break up the onions. Other than that, I'm going to let it sit. And here's what I'm not doing. I'm not letting it sit on high. High was just to preheat the pan. All right? So we're going to turn this down to just below medium, and we're going to let it go. Okay? I know that many people want to walk away. Unfortunately, this is something that you actually have to pay attention to every now and then. You can't just set it and forget it, okay? So, we have that going. We have our bacon going right now. The last thing we're going to need to cook is actually our eggs, okay? Now, remember I said we are going to slightly undercook our eggs, right? So, go ahead and crack the eggs. Always crack your eggs on a flat surface, not on a corner. If you crack it on a flat surface, then you are less likely to get shelled inside of your egg. Okay? Ready? Just gonna rub the spatula. Alright, you don't need to add any milk, you don't need to add any sort of dairy to this whatsoever. There will be plenty on the pie. Oh, thank you so much, Chef. Appreciate it. When you gonna do your live, man? Alright, just add a little bit of salt and pepper to your eggs. You don't have to do much, just a little bit. Okay? Again, every now and then, step back by your dough. Make sure your dry ingredients are getting mixed in. Check your onions. Like I said, every now and then. This is not a continual process. It's just every now and then. You see, we're already getting some great color on that, right? Let it do what it has to do on its own. All you're doing is caramelizing the sugars that are naturally in it. So if you go low and slow and just let it sit on your heat, it's going to do its job by itself. You don't need to coach it. They know what to do. Trust your onions, all right? They know what to do. So you put some salt in there. I'm going to put a little bit of telecherry. Telecherry is just a larger peppercorn. Matter of fact, I think I have it in here. So telecherry is just a larger peppercorn versus your usual peppercorn, which I have in here too. Awesome. Okay. So You see the size difference in this. These are just a lot larger than these are. Right? And these larger ones are more mature in flavor. So what you have is a little more of a nuttier flavor that's going on there. You have a little more savoriness. You have some citrus notes. And that's just from them being larger and being more mature in flavor. Okay? So let's put this back. Alright, so a little bit of that cherry in there, just to give it a little stronger flavor. Okay. Again, every now and then is all we're doing. Let our onions go. We're going to go ahead and take our bacon and flip it over now. I know this is, like, for many of you, disgusting to see your bacon this underdone, but trust me, it's going to be fine. Alright? Just trust me, it's going to be okay. So, we got our onions going, we have our bacon going, we have our eggs mixed up and ready to go. We're not going to pop this into the pan until a little bit later, so we'll set this aside for now. Okay? And I can turn off the heat on this bacon now. Let that finish up with the heat that's already on there. And our dough is almost done as well. Okay? So, breakfast pizza is something that I've actually had quite a few times. So that's why, again, I was very shocked when my wife told me that she had not had any breakfast pizza before, because I just didn't understand how that was not a thing anywhere. But when I was at Adelphi, we definitely made breakfast pizzas on our brunch days, on Saturdays and things like that. And it's not that hard to make. It's really just a matter of knowing what you want to put on it. So whatever your favorite ingredients are, you can put on it. For us, I'm going to be putting some tomatoes in. And this is something that we're really doing right now, which is we're trying to make sure we utilize everything that's in the house. Okay? So I know that seems like makes sense, but what we found is that we were actually purchasing to cook instead of cooking what we had. Okay? So for instance, if you have something that is left in your fridge, and many times like, oh, I'm gonna get to that, I'm gonna cook that, I'm gonna do something with that later. And what we found is many times we didn't get to it later. We didn't do anything with it later. It just kind of sat in the fridge, and then by the time that we thought about it again, it had gone bad. So what we're trying to do is we went through this new savings opportunity, and what we realized is that most of our money is tied up in. We have breakfast pizza at Travelers. That's awesome. Yes, yes. We did have breakfast pizza at Travelers. But for some reason, a lot of people don't do it. So what we found is we had a ton of stuff in the fridge that we had just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we weren't using it for anything, and it just ended up going bad, going in the garbage. So when you're spending all this money on food, especially now, it kind of makes sense to try and figure out how to utilize that stuff. We do it in the kitchen every day of professional lives and restaurants. Why not do it in your home a little bit more effectively as well? So for us, we had a little bit of cherry tomatoes left, so I'm going to put those cherry tomatoes on there. We had some sliced cheese from some sandwiches for lunch. So we have some Swiss cheese, we have some cheddar cheese in here, and all I did was just cut it into like strips, almost like julienne strips. What's up, Chef Andreas? How you doing? Then we had, so I normally make pizza sauce for the Neapolitan pizza class. I ran out of pizza sauce, but we had some marinara left, so I know Cardinal saying you don't put marinara sauce on a pizza. It tastes good. It's fine. You can do it. So we got some marinara sauce here. Okay? And we're going to be putting an avocado on there. Avocado on pizza is freaking delicious. Don't knock it till you try it. Trust me. And the good thing about this is you can actually cook the avocado, or you can actually put the avocado on afterwards if you want that temperature difference of hot and cold, and you just want the fresh avocado, you can do that as well. But 10 minutes in the oven on the avocado actually makes it a little creamier and pretty delicious. So you should try that out. And then also I have some fresh mozzarella that we're going to put on there. Okay? And shameless plug, just because I won. Spiceology. Spiceology sent me a whole bunch of salt-free blends to work on the Life or Death challenge, and the empanada ended up winning. I had like a ton of spice blends. I think things like 13 or 14 in the line of salt-free spice blends, and so this one is the Pizza Time Spice Blend. It's actually pretty awesome, so we're going to use that as well. Also, I got some Parmesan Reggiano. You can see that in the bottom here, and we're going to use that on the crust, along with truffle oil. Love truffle oil. It is amazing. It is, depending on where you go, but if you have it, you can use garlic oil, you can use olive oil. I just happen to love the flavor of this, so does my wife, so we're gonna use some of that too. Why not, right? It's our kitchen. Yeah, so, and that's the thing. Chef Andreas said it perfectly. Why not make some omelets, make something that you like out of it, and utilize it to your advantage, right? So, our pizza dough is almost done. We got about 3 minutes left on it. So, right now, your dough ball should be at a point where it's starting to come together. It should be nice and smooth, and it should be kind of figuring out the last of those bumps in there, okay? So, this is the mixing, and we're not going to rest this dough because this is not a dough that needs to be rested, but we're mixing and kneading it at the same time right now. Proofing is typically done overnight, which is why it's an 8-hour proof, and they call that an overnight proof because typically, your restaurant is closed for at least 8 hours or overnight, okay? So this one is a quick rising dough, so you actually don't have to rest it overnight, okay? This one, 45 minutes to an hour will do you just fine, okay? So once this is done, the next step of this dough is going to be stretching it. Okay, now there's several different ways to stretch out a pizza. You have the hand stretch, you have the table stretch, you have the knuckle stretch, and you have a rolling pin. I don't think I have to explain a rolling pin. The hand stretch is actually the one that is pretty simple, but not a lot of people really know about it. So hand stretch, you're taking it from your dominant hand. I am right-handed, so from your weaker hand to your dominant hand. So I would be doing left hand to right hand, and it would just be a quick shimmy of the dough. And in that quick shimmy of the dough, I would let gravity take its course, and it would keep drawing the dough down as I'm turning it. And you have to do it quickly, otherwise it deforms the dough into more of an oval instead of a circle. Okay? Then you have the table stretch. The table stretch, the dough is down flat on the surface, and you're just taking from the middle, stretching out to the edges, and turning it at the same time. So it looks like this motion. And if you've ever been to Domino's, or taking your kids to Domino's to look at the people make the pies, since they have that, pie window watching area, you'll notice that this is the type of stretch that they do, okay? They put a little bit of cornmeal down, and then they take the doughs and they stretch it out from the middle and turn it around. The reason why is because that's the most foolproof way to stretch your dough without screwing it up. So it's the easiest way to do it, and that's why they teach so many people to do it that way, okay? The other stretch is the knuckle stretch. Now this is the one that everybody dreams of doing, and they think it's hand tossing, and it's not actually hand tossing using your knuckles. Your fingers are too pointy to toss that, and what happens is you end up puncturing it. So use your knuckles, okay? And you notice that you'll see this picture in like La Famiglia, Sbarro's. You see this guy's in Times Square, and he's sitting down like this, and the dough is up in the air, floating in the air in this iconic image, right? So what they actually do is you have to put it on your knuckles, and then just like the table stretch, think of the table stretch from underneath. You're going to take it from the middle, stretch it to the outside, and then you're going to jump it and turn it and catch it again. And this is all you're doing, okay? That's the entire motion of what you're doing, all right? So that's all you have to do with that. So our dough is almost done. We got just a couple seconds left. So I am going to take this dough out. I'm going to show you how to finish the knead so you can make your dough ball out of it. And then we're going to move on to stretching, dressing, and baking, all right? So let's stretch this for a minute. Okay, so that's done. Does anybody have any questions right now? I mean, feel free to ask anything, pizza related or not. It's perfectly fine. All right, so lower this down. Like that. Unhook the dough hook. And you can see the dough now, and you see that it pulls out pretty easily. Okay? And what you're looking for is you're looking for something that's tacky but not sticky. Okay, and that just means that when you touch it, it slightly sticks to your finger, but it's not going to like form a whole bunch of goo or anything on your finger. That's not what we're looking for. So it should come off the dough hook pretty clean. And see, I just pulled that right off. Okay, we're done with that dough hook. And we're done with this mixer. All right, and what we have now is we have a nice dough ball, and you see that as it mixed, it got tacky enough where it started getting all those dry ingredients out of there, and so now we're left with a nice dough ball that suits our purposes. And all we're doing with the kneading is we're increasing the gluten amount. The reason why you need to increase the gluten is, think of a rubber band, right? If you have a rubber band by itself, then what kind of flour? I use double O flour, chef, but Cake flour and AP flour work just fine for this as well. They just don't have the same amount of elasticity that you're going to find out of your double O, which I know you already know. Think of having a rubber band ball. Okay, when you tie a rubber band in a knot, it's a lot harder to break that rubber band than when the rubber band did not have the knot in it. So what we're doing essentially when we're kneading it is we're tying those gluten strands in knots and knots and knots and knots and knots, so it gets tougher and tougher to break it apart. And that's in key to when we stretch out our dough. We want to make sure that the dough is at a point where we can stretch it out without fear of tearing it. So that's why you don't use pie flour or those low gluten flours. Okay, one of the brands that we actually use in our in restaurants and that was actually Trump brand. It's actually not related to Donald Trump, but it's actually called Trump brand. So if you find that, you'll see Trump brand has high gluten, specifically in bold letters written on that. That's another brand that you can use. You'll find that in specialty shops. Sometimes you'll find it in some of the Italian stores as well. Okay, so this is our dough ball. Again, remember I said it's nice and smooth. And one way you know when your dough is done, when you poke it, it should come right back out. Think of a well done steak. I know, not everybody likes them, but they do exist. All right, so think of a well done steak, and that's what we're looking for with that. Now, I had to do a larger batch because I have a big bowl, and the small batch doesn't work well in my bowl. So I need to cut this down real quick to show you how to finish it off. So let me go ahead and grab my scale. Okay. Okay, and what we're looking for is 8 ounces for a personal size pizza. If you want to do a 12-ounce pizza, 12 ounces is going to be medium. And if you want to do a large pizza is going to be 16 ounces. And remember, don't worry about the measurements and all that right now. I will make sure that this recipe gets posted through the blog on the webpage. And it will also go to YouTube as well. If you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Gourmet Guide NYC on YouTube. You can find the link on the Facebook page and the Instagram page in the bio. All right, so this whole thing is about 32 ounces, which is fine. I have a good counter that I can cut on. That's the only reason why I'm cutting on this counter. If you don't have a counter that's meant for cutting, don't cut in your counter. All right, so let's cut this in half first. That'll give us 16. Cut that in half and we'll get, looks good. Take a little bit off of that. Right. Perfect. All right, so we got that, that's 2, and then we'll just cut the last one. Okay. Just cut a little bit off of that. And that should be enough to make this next dough ball. Good. Okay. So I like to call this part of the kneading a 5-point stretch, okay? 5-point knead, okay? And so with this one, what you're doing is think of a 5-point star, right? You're gonna take your index, middle finger, and your thumb, and you're gonna pull a little bit of the dough out, and then you're gonna tuck it right into the middle. Turn it to the next point, pull the dough out, tuck it in, pull out, tuck in, pull out, tuck in, pull out, tuck in, okay? And then you're gonna take this part of your hand between your thumb and your index finger, you're gonna wrap it right around the middle, and you're gonna start turning it, and as you turn it towards yourself, you're gonna use this part right underneath your knuckle to start turning it into itself, okay? And as you turn it into itself, what you'll find is that you will start getting rid of all those little striations and cracks and tears, and what you'll find is you'll have a nice smooth dough ball, okay? So all the way around, you have a nice smooth dough ball, and this is important because as the dough rises, you wanna make sure. There's a traffic jam in my kitchen right now. There they go. So as this happens, what it's going to do is, as it expands, any cracks or tears that you have in your dough are going to cause the dough to tear and break apart. So it's fine, it's fine. They can still hear me. I have my earpiece in, so it's fine. So that's how we do that, okay? So I'll do it a couple more times so you can see it. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in this bowl. Okay, that way it's stick to the bottom. And we'll pop our dough ball in there. Had an accident. Anyway, again, so 5 points. 2, 3, 4, 5. Take your hand, wrap it around the middle, and you're going to turn it. And as you turn it, you're going to slowly flatten it into itself. All right. until you get a nice, smooth dough ball on both sides. Okay? So that's what we're looking for. Do it 2 more times in case you missed it. Okay? So pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, and tuck. Grab your hand. You're going to turn it. As you turn it, you're going to slowly push it into itself. Okay? Nice and smooth. Let's do the last one. Pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, tuck, pull, tuck. All right? Again, just wrap your hand around the middle, and as you turn it towards yourself, you're going to slowly push it into itself, and that's how you're going to get that nice smooth dough ball. Okay? And that's what we have. Both sides, nice and even. Now we're going to put a little bit of olive oil on the top of each one, and just want to make sure that you rub it down, so that way it keeps the top from drying out as it rises, and as it kneads out, it keeps it from drying out. Okay? And now what we need to do is put it in a place that is, what's going on, Chef? How are you? What you need to do now is put it in a place where it can actually chill and it can proof. Okay? Now, perfect proofing temperature is between 82 and 85 degrees. I know. Where are you going to find that in your house, right? So, I'm going to give you a very simple, easy way to figure out where 82 to 85 degrees is in your house. Okay? So, I have a bay window behind me, right? If you are in an area that is sunny, you can actually pop it in a window, and you can let it sit there for about 45 minutes, okay? Now, you always want to cover this up. You can use plastic wrap, you can use parchment paper, or you can use a towel, okay? And all you have to do is just pop this right over the top of it, okay? And that's all you have to do. Now, if you don't have a window accessible, you can put it in front of a sunny patio door. If you have pets and you don't want the pets or the babies, because the babies did get a hold of my dough one day and poked quite a few holes in it. You can also put it, if you are blessed to have 2 ovens, gas ovens, you can actually pop it in a gas oven that is off, okay? The pilot light keeps it about 82 to 85 degrees. Hey, Dad, how are you? The pilot light keeps it about 82 to 85 degrees inside of the oven, perfect proofing temperature for what we need it for here, okay? Another option, if you do not have it, because our oven right now is on 475 to cook the pizza. So if you don't have 2 ovens, your oven is on waiting for the pizza to go in, another option is to put it on top of your water heater. Okay, if you put it on top of your water heater, it's going to be right around that temperature of 82 to 85 degrees. Okay, so you have 3 options. You could do it in the window, you could do it in the oven when it's off, or you can put it on top of your water heater. For me, it goes underneath my water heater because I live in a Levitt home. So Levitt homes, we don't have basements, so our water heaters are in our kitchen, and typically they're either elevated or underneath the stairs. So I'm going to put this under the water heater. Give me 1 second. Okay, and we're back. All right, so that's going to sit there for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then after that happens, you can actually take that and you can wrap it and pop it in the freezer, and it's good for about 90 days in the freezer. Just make sure you wrap it airtight. Okay, now our TV magic moment. We have our dough balls now. You see how much larger they got. This recipe is not one where they're going to expand up 10 times. It's going to increase by 1.5 to 2 times whatever it was originally. Okay, so we have our dough ball here. What we need is just a little bit of flour, not a lot. Okay. So the reason why you don't want a lot of flour is because if you have excess flour, it ends up burning in the oven and giving it a very bitter flavor. Again, we want to avoid that bitter flavor, so we don't want a ton of flour. All right. So normally what I would do is I would just have a bowl, and I would just pop this into the bowl and hit it on both sides. But I don't have another. Actually, I do have another bowl. So let's do that. Okay. So I'll pop this in there. Forgot I had that bowl right over there. You just want to take one of these. Okay, and you want to hit both sides of the dough ball into the flour. Make sure it's nice and coated. And then you're going to tap off any excess flour. Okay? And we have our dough ball that's nice and coated so that way it won't stick to our surface, all right? So because this one is quick rising, we have to dock the dough first. Now, you don't have to go out and get a docker and roll it through and all that. You don't have to do all that. What you can do, you can use your fingers, the best tools God gave you, right? And you're gonna start in the middle, and this is how you're gonna start forming your disc. So you're gonna start in the middle, and you're just gonna lightly tap it to kind of get out all those extra air bubbles, because if you don't, what's gonna happen, you're gonna have a misshapen pie. What's up, Arisha? Oh, thank you so much, I appreciate it. You're gonna have a misshapen pie. It's gonna be a whole bunch of lumps and bubbles and things that are gonna cause your toppings to fall off and burn in the oven. We don't want that either, right? Remember, no bitter flavors. Burning food that's cooking and food that's burning is gonna burn too. So it's gonna have a burnt flavor even if it's not burnt. So you just wanna hit it from the middle out towards the edge in a circular motion so you can get the disc, okay? So it went from a ball to a disc, all right? And we just lightly tapped it. We weren't trying to poke holes in it. We weren't trying to fight it. We weren't trying to, have Mortal Kombat with this thing. All we wanted to do was just kind of get it stretched out a little bit so we can get to the next step. Now, this is where we start our stretching process. So let me demonstrate the hand one. Remember I just said from your weak hand to your dominant hand, and this is all you're doing. And you're letting gravity do what it has to do in order to stretch it out. So you see it's already getting larger as I'm stretching, okay? So that's the hand stretch, okay? Then you have the table stretch, stretching out and turning. Out and turn, out and turn, out and turn, out and turn. That's all we're doing is out and turning, okay? And then you have your knuckle stretch. So the knuckle stretch from the middle, remember what I told you? Your knuckles are in the middle together, and you're just stretching out and tossing it to readjust. So out, readjust, out, readjust, out, readjust, out, readjust, out, readjust. Out, readjust, out, readjust. That's all you're doing. And you always want to do a little bit of a table stretch first to get it large enough to fit onto your knuckles. Remember, do not use your fingertips. At this point, you will start to puncture the dough, okay? So we're stretching ours out to 8 inches. 8 inches is a personal size, and I'm using a pizza screen, okay? Now, I know this looks very brown and looks very different than what you would anticipate it looking like, and that's because it's seasoned, okay? So this, just like this, need to be seasoned before you cook with them. Why does that need to be? This is a wok, by the way, if you didn't know that this is a wok. Okay, woks need to be seasoned to form what's called a patina, just like these need to be seasoned to form a patina. It's a nonstick surface that is created from the oil being burned in, essentially, and it creates a very unique flavor that you aren't going to find anywhere else outside of doing this type of process. So for this, all you have to do is brush it with olive oil. Do not use extra virgin. Extra virgin oils are used more for dressing or finishing. They should not ever be used for cooking. The smoke point is too low, and what I mean is when the oil starts to break down, that temperature is way too low, and what will happen is you'll get very bitter flavors with everything, and you don't want that, okay? So you just brush some olive oil on here, pop it, both sides, pop it into your oven at 500 degrees until it starts to smoke, and then the smoke dissipates, and you're good to go, and you have your nice patina on here, okay? And the same thing goes if you have your wok. You would just use sesame oil. You would rub the sesame oil around the inside, and then you would pop it onto the stove on high heat and let it go until it starts to smoke, and then the smoke dissipates, and you have your patina, your non-stick surface that's in there, okay? So we're gonna stretch this out to 8 inches. If you are using a pizza stone, your pizza stone needs to go in your oven before you turn it on. If you put a cold stone in a hot oven, it will break, and in some cases it might even explode depending on the temperature difference, all right? So let's go ahead and finish stretching out this pie. Ready? Now, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions for me so far? Anybody at all? I'm here to answer anything that you have. It could be pizza related or not. Okay. All right. So I guess no questions so far, so I must be doing a pretty good job explaining this to you. Okay. Now, if you ever have a hole that gets formed into your pie, there's an easy fix to it. Typically, where there's a thin spot, there's a thick spot right next to it. Just take that thick spot, stretch it over slightly to the thin spot, press it down with your thumb, and that should solve the problem enough for what you need to get done with getting this pie dressed and into your oven. Okay? So again, we're looking for 8 inches. We are good with our 8 here. Okay. One thing you don't want to do if you have a tear is you don't want to repair the tear on top of the screen. What happens is if you repair the tear on top of the screen, it ends up sticking inside of these holes that are on the pizza screen. Okay, so you don't want to fix it on top of the pizza screen. Always fix it on your counter and then put it on the screen. Now, this serves 2 purposes. It serves as a nonstick vessel to host the pizza, but also these nice cool holes on the bottom allows the temperature of the oven to hit on the bottom at the same time and temperature that it hits on the top. When you have a sheet pan, that sheet pan typically is at room temperature or colder sometimes, depending if you have your AC on. And so that pan has to heat up first before it's able to hit the temperature that's necessary to crisp up that crust at the same crispiness that you're getting on the top. So this is just a lot more efficient. Pizza Stone does the exact same thing. Okay, so we have our pizza crust. All right, and now I'm going to answer the age-old $1,000,000 question: how much sauce is too much sauce? Okay, now while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and heat up this pan for the eggs. Okay, now how much sauce is too much sauce? I'm going to say a lot of people are going to think like I need to use this whole thing, right, on this pie. I'm going to correct you on that. This is a 2-ounce ladle, okay? And I'm going to prove to you right now that 2 ounces is enough sauce for your pizza. So you want to start in the middle, and as the sauce is coming out, you just want to use the actual bowl of the ladle in order to stretch the sauce out towards the edge. Now we are going to go about 1 inch from the edge. Okay, now why are we doing that? You'll notice something that I have not done yet is I have not done that folding technique that a lot of people have self-invented in order to make a nice thick crust. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the principle of gravity. Okay, so the principle of gravity states that anything that is heavier will not rise as much as things that are not heavier. It's science, right? So wherever I'm not putting sauce and toppings is naturally going to rise higher than where I am. Okay, and you have a beautifully sauced pie. With just 2 ounces. This is a personal size pizza. All you need is 2 ounces of sauce for that. Okay? So we'll set that aside. And again, you're looking at about 1 inch. The tip of about everybody's fingertip, index finger, is about 1 inch. So you can use that as your measurement if you don't have a ruler in the kitchen like many chefs claim they do but actually don't. You can just use that as your guide. Okay? So we have that, right? Now our pan is nice and hot. So we're going to go ahead and put in a tad bit of oil into it. And we just want enough oil so that way the eggs don't stick. Remember I said it's nice and shimmery. So I don't know if you can see that ripple, but that's what we're going for. Okay? So this pan is ready to go. I'm going to turn my heat down because remember I don't want to overcook my eggs. I want to cook them just enough for what we're about to do. Okay? So, this is ready to go. I turn the heat down to medium. As soon as I put the eggs in, I'm going to turn the heat down to low. Okay? You notice that our eggs are already starting to curdle as soon as we put them in. Turn it all the way down to low. And we aren't going to cook these eggs that long at all. Okay? Matter of fact, I don't even need to heat anymore to cook it for the amount of time that we're going to cook it for. So you always want to make sure that when you are cooking eggs that you're moving the pan as well as moving the spatula that's inside the pan. And you see where these eggs are right now, they're still a little bit runny. This is perfect for what we're looking for. So we're going to take these eggs out now. And we're going to start to put them onto the pie just by using the spatula to spread them out. Okay. You just want to make sure that you get a nice even distribution of the egg around this thing. Okay. Set that aside. So now we have our pizza. We have the eggs on the pizza now. And again, you can see the eggs are slightly runny, and that's fine because they're going to go into the oven for 10 minutes. Okay. So it's perfectly fine to have it that way because you don't want to overcook it and make them really dry. Okay. So we have our pizza here. We have our eggs here. We have cheese. So let's put our first little bit of cheese on there. We're going to do the fresh mozz first. And we're just going to intermittently just spread it out around the pizza. Okay. And the point is not to necessarily cover up the eggs necessarily, versus just make sure that we have a nice spreading of cheese around this thing, so that way we get it nice and gooey, right? We're layering this. We don't want to overdo it, but we want to make sure that we have enough on there. Okay, so we have that on there. Let's turn off this heat. Now we're going to take let's do our bacon first. All right. And you can just tear the bacon. You don't need to dirty more dishes, getting another cutting board or anything like that. You can just break the bacon up and put it onto the pizza. And again, you're just spreading it around to make sure that you get nice coverage, and with every bite, you're going to have a little bit of everything. All right? I find 2 pieces works best with this size pie. Okay. Yeah, does anybody have any questions so far? Morning, sis. How's everything going? Are you making this with me, or are you going to make it later on? I don't know if you saw the finished picture of this or not, but this is what we're making right now. Breakfast pizza. Okay, we're just finishing up getting the toppings on, and then we're going to pop it into the oven. Okay. All right, so remember I said layers, right? So we have our sauce, we have our eggs, we have some mozzarella cheese, now we have our bacon. We're going to put a little bit more cheese on top. Okay. Again, this is the shredded cheese, just spread it out. You want to make sure it's nice and even. All right. And it's going to look amazing when it actually melts down and everything. So I'm just letting you know, like, I'm anticipating it right now. And my wife is stalking me right now too. She just walked in the kitchen 3 times looking at me, so I guess she's waiting for it too. Okay, so we have that. Now we're going to put on our caramelized onions. Okay, and again, you just want to spread it out around the pie, so that way, again, you get everything in every bite. And these are lightly caramelized. These aren't caramelized to the point where they are completely brown. There's still a little bit of white to them, and that's fine. Again, we're going to be finishing this off in the oven. Okay? And what I'm also doing is I'm making sure there's not a ton of stuff in one spot on the pizza. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible for that to be cooked at the same time as the crust. And what happens is everything in the middle takes forever to cook, and then the crust ends up burning while you're waiting for the ingredients in the middle to finish up. So now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and pop our tomatoes on there. And again, you just want to spread these out throughout the pizza, so that way you get a little bit of everything in every bite. And the great thing about doing your tomatoes this way is they're going to burst in the oven, and they're going to be a little bit gooey, which I find to be freaking amazing. And evidently my wife does too, because I guess that's one of the reasons why she married me, because I know how to make this type of stuff. So go ahead and pop this into your oven. You're going to put it on the top shelf in your oven, and set your timer for 10 minutes. Okay? So while that's going, does anybody have any more questions so far? Yeah, I watch service at 9 o'clock, so I am completely refreshed, ready, and willing to eat some good food. So the last couple things that we're going to do is when it comes out of the oven, we're going to put our truffle oil on, hit it with our pizza seasoning, our avocados, and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. So this is the last of what we have to do here. So I'm going to show you how to cut this avocado. It's pretty easy. You just want to make sure you take out the pit. Okay? And what we're going to do first, and I'm showing you in the air because it's a little bit easier, and also I can't open the gate to move the camera back further because then the boys will destroy it and I won't be able to do this anymore. So just cut the avocado in half first. Okay? And with these 2 halves, you're just going to cut them into quarters. Very simply, cut right down the middle. And again, you might want to do this on a cutting board so you don't risk cutting into your hand. And that's all you're doing. You're cutting each one into halves, and then you're cutting the halves into halves. Okay? So, again, straight down the middle. Cut in half. and cut it in half. And you can actually leave it in here until you need to take it out too. Okay, so that actually serves as a nice little vessel for it until you're ready for it. Okay, so we're gonna leave that there. Okay, and since we have a little bit of time, yeah, Carrie, you know what I'm talking about. It was rough. I actually almost delayed till 1 o'clock, especially when he spilled that medicine. They were up last night for a good amount of time, so my wife wasn't able to sleep that well. She stayed up being concerned about the temperature. I, of course, went into a coma because that's what I do. That's what dads do. You know, we go into comas while you guys worry all night. But yeah, so I gave her a chance to rest. But what happened is right before I'm about to get on, we had to give our son some gripe water. I don't know, for you guys that don't know what gripe water is. Gripe water is, I guess it's from England or something. I don't know. It's something that my wife knew about from when she was a kid. And I guess it's for gas. I don't really know what it does. I just know that she says it works, and so we do it. They have child safety locks on there, right? So we took the child safety cap. I took it off. I did the syringe of the medicine, and then I put it back on, and I put it on the counter. I come back around the corner, and my son has an empty bottle in his hand, upside down, vigorously shaking it while holding the child safety cap in his other hand. And I had to think for a moment, like, what's the appropriate reaction for this right now? And I didn't blow up. I was very surprised, but I did not blow up. And I said, go. Just go. Go. And I went ahead and cleaned it up, and then I went ahead and got on camera. So that is what happened, and why we were delayed for that little bit of time was because I was trying to stay sane in a moment that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because gripe water essentially is just sugar water. So yeah. How can I make avocado appetizing? Do you mean by appetizing, do you mean make it where it is very green? Do you mean the flavor, make sure it sticks out in whatever you cook? Or what do you mean by appetizing? More clarification, please, sis. And also, I'm going to show you guys something else that you guys can do with this dough in the meantime. Okay? So, this dough is good for anything that you want to make that is a pizza type of thing. So, if you want to make strombolis, this will work for strombolis. If you want to make, I almost said cannolis. If you want to make like pocket pizzas, you can do that. And another thing that it's great for is garlic knots. So, I'm going to show you real quick how to make garlic knots. Okay? So, remember for the pizza, we had to dock it, right? So, if you're trying to dock your pizza, that means you're trying to get rid of air. We don't want to get rid of air if we are making the garlic knots. We want as much of that air in there as possible so they stay nice and light and fluffy, okay? So, all you have to do for that, remember, my counter is made for cutting. Yours may not be, so try to cut on a cutting board before cutting on your counter if you don't know, so you don't damage it and blame me for it because I can't afford to replace it. Okay, so there we go. Now that that's out of the way, cut this into thirds. Okay. Now that we have our 3 strips, and this is the easiest thing in the world. Everybody thinks this is like the most difficult thing, and they're mesmerized when they see them. This is all they did. They took the pizza dough ball, before they even flattened it out, didn't do anything to it, and you just take it, wrap it around your finger, poke it through the middle, and that's it. That's your garlic knot. It's that easy. So, Carmen, you don't like it, and do you not like it because it's too creamy? What do you want to change about it so I can give you a better direction into this? Because I have a recipe in mind that is 100% avocado, but it's freaking amazing, and I think that you would really like it. So again, all you're doing is taking it, tying it into a knot, and that's it. These are garlic knots. This is what everybody raves over. This is how you make them. It's that easy. All right. One more time. Just wrap it right around your finger and poke it right through the middle. Now again, this dough you can use for calzones. You can do a lot of stuff with it. It's very flexible. And from here, all I do is I brush it with a little bit of garlic oil or olive oil, pop it into your oven for 10 minutes at 475. And then when it comes out, I normally hit mine with a mixture of Parmesan cheese, parsley, garlic, and olive oil, and a little bit of sea salt. And we just pop that, toss it, and then you put it into a bowl and just scrape whatever's left over on top of it. So, Carmen, I'm gonna give you a couple different recipes. If you don't like the texture, you can always do a fried avocado. Okay, and fried avocado or tempura avocado is easy to pull off. It's essentially egg whites with room temperature water and a little bit of cornstarch. Okay, and not room temperature, cold water, ice cold water. Sorry, I don't know why I said room temperature water. You need ice cold water, egg whites, and some cornstarch. You're gonna mix that up. Take the avocado slices and you're gonna toss that in there real quick and immediately drop it into piping hot oil. Okay, your oil needs to be about 350 degrees. Okay, and you're going to drop it in there and it's going to puff up and it's going to have a nice crunchy outside while the inside is nice and creamy from the avocado. Okay, so that's one recipe I can give you. Another recipe is the shired avocado egg. If you like eggs that are a little bit warm and like an over easy egg or a sunny side up egg, this would be perfect for you because that egg richness kind of blends in with the avocado creaminess. And so if you're creeped out by the creaminess of the avocado, it kind of gets confused with the egg, so you don't notice it as much. Okay, and that's even easier. You just take an avocado half, take the seed out, drop the egg. You might want to scoop a little bit out depending on the size of your egg. Then you crack the egg, drop it right into the hole where the seed was, and pop it into your oven. That's it. Let it go for I'd say 350 for about 10 minutes if you want it to be a sunny side egg. If you want it to be a little more than a sunny side, like closer to an over medium, then I would let it go for maybe 12 minutes, 13 minutes. But yeah, then you take that out and you can put whatever toppings you want on there. If you look on my Instagram page, you will actually see where I have it displayed there. And very quickly, all you do is just put some cheese on there, put some pepper flakes, you can put some parsley, toss some lime juice on there, and it's amazing. Okay, so I would try out one of those two depending on which is creeping you out, the texture or the temperature, whatever that may be. That's kind of two ways to kind of cover it up. Now with the tempura, you will still get more of the taste of the avocado, but the creaminess will be mixed with the texture, so you won't feel like it's as creamy as it would be otherwise. Okay, whereas the other way, you'll have the creaminess, which will be mixed in with the egg, and then the flavor is not muted, but the flavor is still like it's lessened by everything else that's going on with it. Okay, so those are the two recipes I would give you with that. So that is that. Let me wipe off this counter real quick as it's almost done. Let me set up my cutting board and let me just give you a quick tutorial on something. Okay, and that is how to properly cut your pizza. So, do I have it over here or did I put it back in the drawer? I put it back in the drawer. Okay. Yeah, here it is. All right. So this is a pizza wheel. This is the knife. Pizza wheel, knife. This is not this. Okay? So you can't treat this like it's this. Here's the thing. This has a sharp edge that cuts and separates. Okay? This does not have a sharp edge. All it does is separate. So that means that you have to make an initial break of whatever you're cutting with this in order to finish separating it. Alright? So typically what you'll see, and if you go to a good pizzeria, you'll hear this sound all the time. And that's them breaking the crust. So you break the crust, and then you use some leverage, and you finish separating. Okay? Then they'll turn the pie, break the crust, finish separating, or they'll just do that, do that. Now, if you do not break the crust first, what happens is everything sticks together, and I don't know if you have had this before, but I absolutely hate it when you go to pick up a slice, it's stuck to another slice, and all of your toppings slide off. This prevents that from happening. So, break the crust, finish your separation, break the crust, finish your separation. Okay? Let's go ahead and get our pie out. Alright. Now there's a couple ways to tell when your pie is done. One way is by what's called leoparding. Leoparding is when on the bottom of the crust, whatever flour is left over, it actually starts to brown, and you'll see little brown spots on the bottom. Another thing is you'll see a ring that's on the bottom that goes around the outside edge, and that's another way to tell if your crust is done. So let's go ahead and slide this onto our cutting board. Okay. All right. So this is our pizza. Okay, remember I said the tomatoes got nice and they burst, and you can even see the juice coming out of this tomato right here. Okay, and so this is the basis of what we're going for, right? And now all we have to do is finish it off by oiling the crust. Okay, and I did a Neapolitan style crust, so there's not a whole bunch of sugar and stuff in there, and so therefore the caramelization happens more when you get the oil on versus in the cooking process. Okay, so that's why this is still a pretty white crust and not very dark. Okay, so you can use a pastry brush or you can use a spoon. I always recommend using a paintbrush that you never used before, because that's actually all a pastry brush is, a glorified paintbrush. The only difference is that they sell in a pastry shop and they call it a pastry brush. It's not really a huge difference. I don't recommend silicone brushes for this. I think bristle brushes work best because they're able to pull more of that oil in there, versus the silicone, everything slips right off, and so you're kind of in a race against time. And you know, oil is very thin versus, like, say, barbecue sauce is not, so therefore it doesn't really do well on silicone bristles. Okay, so use a bristle brush. Alright. And we're just going to put just a tad bit of oil. You don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. Okay? And then you're just going to brush it with the oil. Okay? You want to brush from the edge towards the toppings. Okay? Then you take a tad bit of your seasoning, and you're just going to sprinkle the seasoning on the pie. Okay? Now we're going to put our avocado on. And remember, I said you want to keep it in here. It makes it very easy in order to take care of getting this out. And all you have to do now is just peel it right off. Okay? Comes right up into your hand. Easy peasy. And then you're just going to put the avocado, and, you know, again, you just want to put it around the pie so that way you get nice even flavor with everything. Okay? Now, if you want your avocado thinner, you can cut your avocado thinner. That is completely up to you. It does not really matter which way you do it, as long as you're happy with how much avocado is on there. But this is just an easy way to present it, I think, is to cut the wedges. Okay? Alright. A little bit like that. And I'll leave that piece there. We'll set that aside. Alright, and then the very last thing is we're just going to put a tad bit of Parmesan cheese on here. Actually, I got a better way to do that. Let me grab a little bit of this. Alright, so I got a little nub of Parmesan cheese left here. Just going to run it through the grater. Get a little finer Parmesan out of that. So, looks a little better. And then the heat from the pizza actually immediately starts to curl it up too. So that's nice too. Okay. All right. And remember what I said. You have to break the crust first before you can finish cutting it. Okay? So, break the crust, and then you're going to push it all the way through. Okay? Make sure you keep your avocado intact so it still looks good when you plate it. Turn it. Hit it. And then just finish your rest of your separation on that. Okay? Set that aside. Let me grab a plate. Slide this on here, and then I'll give you the final look at what this looks like. All right? And that is our breakfast pizza. Okay? What's up, Mom? And again, you know, you can put whatever you want to put on here. This is what we had left in our kitchen, and so that's why we put this on here. Is we had our bacon, we had some onions left, we had some tomatoes left, we had some avocado. This is like just a half avocado. We had all this cheese left for making sandwiches, and so it's like, why not? You know? Well, I said, why not? She said, this is delicious. You need to make this every day. So, this is the breakfast pizza. That's all I got for you guys. My wife is looking at me very precariously because, I don't know if I said that right. Anyway, she's looking at me hungrily, and she wants some pie. So, I'm going to go ahead and give this to her. And do you guys have any other questions? Or are you guys all good? All good, all good, all good? Okay. Well, from my kitchen to yours, it's been a pleasure. And bon appetit. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one. All right? Have a good one, guys.